Okay, so how many we've got? Almost there. One more to go. I like this one. This one's cute because I've seen it often. You're at a conference and you see 3 ageing professors who look like me, men, right? Men usually. And 2 research assistants who are young, attractive women in a group talking. And you think, why were they so young and attractive? They're just meant to do research, right? And then you think, well, it wasn't even in the advertisement, was it? It just said research assistant, didn't say young attractive. But there they are, young attractive research assistants, and one of them will say, I'd love an orange juice. Guess what happens now? Yeah, they've never been so agile in their entire existence, you know. They are so quick to get that drink, and you think, where did she get that power from? And you've got to think very nicely at this point. Where does this power come from? And it's called reward power. Meaning that she has something that they want, and they may just get it. If they couldn't get it, she can get her own orange juice. Which is why when I show you the data on who gets rewards, you'll be shocked. Because it's not the kids who need it. So you don't have reward power over the most challenging kids usually, because they don't get it. And if they don't get it, they know they're not going to get any, so why would they cooperate with the reward system? So it's really interesting sometimes when you do this analysis. But by the way, I can show you, just to get a bit more expert power, if you concentrate in the next 15 minutes, you will be able to sue just about any school in the state. Almost. If you concentrate just in the next 15 minutes discussion, you could probably sue most, if not all, schools in the state. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? So that'll give you, that's there's expert power for you. I just bought a stack of expert power. Okay, so there they are. And in a way they look like that. And you've got a sheet with them on as well. What number is it? It's got a number on the bottom?
5.
Number 5. It's numbered 5 on the bottom. So if you look at the numbering, you'll find it there. It's 5 on the bottom. Got a hunt. 5 on, got it? Now, any questions before we move on? So do you have a sense of these powers? You know what I'm talking about, yeah? This is actually a theoretical analysis of some kind by a guy called Ravens back in 1954, but it's still current. Now, my question to you is the following. When you use these powers in your very own classroom, because that's what you should think about your classroom, you can get 3 responses when you apply power. 1, they may resist you. They may resist you by ignoring you or by arguing or whatever. They may comply, meaning they do it, but it doesn't affect them internally. They just do it. That's compliance. Or you may gain commitment over, usually all of these things happen over time. Commitment means it changes the way they will operate with the CRTs ultimately. That's commitment. So you'll get a change in behavioural practice even when you're not present. So some of these may bring about different things. So what I'm asking you is, what is the impact of these powers in your classroom with your kids? Now, if you were thinking about this question, you would immediately say to me, it depends. And the thing it mainly depends on is which kids and what we're doing. So I'm going to now highlight 4 kinds of kids. This is very, very critical to everything we're going to do. 4 kinds of kids. They're not really kids, actually. They're 4 kinds of behaviour patterns. And I couldn't get around this. When I wrote this thing last year, I was told, look, don't say A kids and B kids and C kids and D. It sounds like they're kids, and we know they're not, because as we all know, a kid who behaves like this in one part of your lesson or in one lesson can be totally different somewhere else. I mean, the examples I'm used to are boys who will destroy a math sequence are phenomenal at sport. They're very cooperative around about phys ed and that sort of stuff, but they hate English lessons. Whereas girls who love English, firstborn girls who love English lessons in secondary school have their period for the entire year so that they never have to do phys ed. And so you get the exact opposite sort of trend. So in one they can be very accommodating and in the other they can be very resisting. So it will depend. So that's a kind of behaviour pattern. Very few people are like that in every setting. Some people, I guess, are. Then there's these people, and they're like you and me more like, I guess. Sometimes they're distracted and disruptive, but generally they're on target. And I wouldn't have to send anyone in this room out for disrupting the whole process. It's unlikely. Then there's people who I would have to isolate because they cannot be contained within the group. Is there anyone who hasn't got one of those children in their class? Okay, no, not just one, at least one. Okay, and then there's these kids, and these are the most difficult ones, and they're the ones you'd probably, C and D you'd sue on. Often. I'll explain why after that we've done the exercise. So the question for you is, in my opinion, if you're changing the culture of a school, the ones that are of most interest are the C kind of kids. Because if you handle them well, they become Bs, and if you handle them badly, they become Ds. So I'm interested in the Cs before they get to D. Okay? So think of a C kid in your experience, or a number of them, and do this activity on a C kid. So for a C kid, what is the likely impact of those kinds of powers? That's the question I'm asking you. But you do your own first, just your own. So all you're going to write in each box is what? Very likely, likely. In other words, if I took the first box, a legitimate power, how likely is it that a C kid will give me some kind of resistance with legitimate power? You have a choice. You can say very likely, likely, unlikely, very unlikely, or possible. What do you reckon? And if you say possible, I'll assume you're a firstborn, you're not going to take any risk because you don't want to get it wrong. But other than that, what would you say? How likely is it that a C kind of person in my setting will give resistance to legitimate power? What do you reckon? Anyone want to venture a guess? Very likely. Very likely in your... Okay, so you'll do your own first and then you'll negotiate on the table and explain where there are differences, why there are, and see if you actually can come to some consensus, and if not, we can discuss that. You've got about 10-15 minutes to play with this, so take your time. This is very, very important. It's sort of a backdrop to everything else I'm going to do.